to go over there to move that black pontoon boat on his own because those guys who parked there were told not to leave it there and they left it there. So he's just pushing it off. That's funny.
By now, you know, everybody and their mama have talked about this video, all the memes on the internet, and you know, the different breakdowns. Shout out to all the brothers, True New Breed, Global Truth, and I think Tariq Nasheed, and a myriad of other people. Like I said, everybody and their mama, but not to be left out or undone. I wanted to give my take on it. It's probably a different angle, at least one I haven't seen yet amongst all the memes and the fray online. And sort of connects to the last video that I put up here, which was fight or flight. Now, this is the definition of fight or flight in the literal sense, you know, in the sense that here you got this brother trying to do his job and he gets, you know, attacked and jumped on, and you know, he chooses to fight, you know, and hey, more props to him. But I think one of the more significant things about this is that the instinct that was provoked in the people around him. Some of them being his co-workers, but not all of them being his co-workers, as you know, I understand. Fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for the fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. A tiger, when attacked, fights alone, even when the imperial tiger is surrounded by fellow tigers. The tigers that are not in immediate danger do nothing to help. Lions defend against attack as a pride. No tiger attacks a lion within sight of another lion. A single lion, however, had it the will to, could slaughter every tiger on the planet, linked up cheek to jowl, one at a time. Randall Robinson, The Reckoning. When you talk about fight or flight, different animals have their different instincts. The fight or flight instinct is an instinct in and of itself, but it manifests differently in different animals. Some freeze up like sheep. A sheep gets scared, its legs tend to lock up and it just falls over. Some lay down like possums and play dead, hoping that the predator will, you know, leave it alone. Coons run from the pack of hounds, try to scurry up a tree, and if only fight if absolutely cornered. But when you talk about tigers versus lions, in this example, the tiger is a powerful, solitary beast. It'll fight for itself as an instinct or will flee if it doesn't think it can win. But this is an instinct. This is an individual instinct. An instinct that's selfish in nature. But it's only one kind of selfishness. It's the selfishness of the individual. Definitely selfish in nature. Lions, on the other hand, fight or flight together. A lion sees another lion attacked. His fight or flight instinct is triggered as if he feels attacked himself. And technically he is when you consider the true nature of empathy. Considering the true nature of empathy, and without getting into quantum entanglement, no, not Jada Pinkett Smith kind of entanglement, but quantum entanglement, and what it means for familiar bonds, it's safe to say there is a mutual benefit in protecting one's kin. That is, in being your brother's keeper, because being your brother's keeper means being your own. This is a good version of selfishness. Seeing your brother as yourself and your sister as your own is the ultimate beneficial selfishness. So what we have here is fight or flight as a group, and a group that's choosing to fight over flight. But the question I want to ask is this black behavior abnormal or surprising? You know, the way it's floating around on the internet and everybody's talking about it and it's some exceptional thing. You know, you would think that this is new. This is something, you know, out of the ordinary or not to be expected. But I say this once was normal. This was the norm. It is the norm for black people, historically speaking. But it's something that's been trained out due to the environment. See, if you take a lion, for example, and take him out of his natural habitat and put him into unnatural habitats, you can train certain natural instincts out of him and get him to, you know, jump through hoops and move to the crack of a whip and things like that. But somewhere deep embedded in his nature, you know, it's the natural lion still. He's just been removed from his habitat, and this normal behavior has been trained out of him. This is why if you raise him around hyenas or, you know, house cats or in zoos or something, you'd have a full-grown lion behaving like a kitten or something, a pussy cat, you know. But if this pride type of mentality was once the norm, then where did it go? And does that mean that it's forever forgotten, a part of the past? This is a quote from the Willie Lynch letter. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomena occurring. For they say the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time, if it can touch a substantial original historical base. And they advised us that the best way to deal with the phenomena is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions. The phenomena that Willie Lynch was referring to in this case was the man coming into his natural role and the woman coming into her natural role against the manufactured role reversal that they necessitated during slavery, traumatizing the woman into an independent mindset and a manly role, and the man to cower into a more feminine, docile mindset and a follower role. But notice it says here that if it can touch some substantial original historical base. You know, this reminds me of the latest attempts to combat what they call critical race theory and the outlawing of black history, and how black teachers across the nation have been complaining that their minds and their hands expressions have been being tied, so to speak, when it comes to teaching black history. That even that is being gatekept, and true history is not being allowed to be revealed. But is that the only component of history, of generational memory, that's being gatekept from us? Can they keep it all from us just by editing the books and lying about what's written down on the skins of dead trees and in the annals of the internet? I would say no. That legacy memory is not only something that we keep on records that are paper and digital, but in a sense, it's a true generational memory, an account of history that is not so easily erased. Case in point, I like to use this reference. I first came across it when reading Dr. Joy DeGroove's book. And it was experimentation, as you can see here, that they done on rats, and subjecting the parent rat groups to certain traumas, and then disconnecting that parent rat group from their babies. And yet somehow the babies inherited the same localized memories. They exhibited adverse reactions to certain stimulus to which the parents were subjected, meaning if it was a scent of mint and then a shock, the baby was born with a fear or adverse reaction to mint even though the baby itself had never been directly subjected to the torture. Now, in this illustration experiment that I have here, it shows that the generational memory traveled detectably down to the 6th generation. Folks, it's been barely 3 to 4 generations. Well, barely 4 generations since Black Wall Street and the pride mentality that built Black Wall Street, and of course the ensuing Tulsa race riots. So relatively speaking, the pride mentality that built Black Wall Street and survived the riots is a relatively recent memory. And I think what we have here was a recollection, something that spurred that instinctive memory to the present. Because when you think about it, even the flight or fight instinct, it's a genetic memory. All of the physiological responses to the fight or flight adrenaline is something that, while it occurs naturally and instinctively, there's a reason why it happens so reliably, and that's because it is something that's also inherited. Thus, it's a form of memory. And the only way to get someone to act instinctively against their own instincts is to training. We see how they can sort of distort and try to wipe the slate when it comes to the history books, but what about the books of the mind? What about the books of the genetics? There are ways you can either do away with evidence in history, rewriting a genetic history, though, something that's recalled in a person's very lineage and genes. I guess you wouldn't have to rewrite it. You could destroy it, perhaps. I wonder if there's any emergent technology, new or recent, that could accomplish something like that. I mean, we know about the diet, the bad food, the genetically modified organisms in terms of what we eat, mingling with the DNA of the foodstuffs. But I don't know. I don't know if there's anything recent in our recent memory or in the prospective future that could mingle with DNA or mRNA. Can you think of anything? I mean, there'd have to be a way of injecting that sort of technology into the human genetic memory. I don't know. But like they say, if it's not in the food, it's in the fork, right? Just don't get jabbed by it. But this has been trending. It's all over the news. You know, people seem to be paying very special attention to this. And why? We're in a day and age we have mass shootings. Typical mass shootings get less press than this lately. Melees that happen, you know, New York, Chicago. I think the difference here is obvious, the racial difference, the racial disparity, or the racial division between the competing groups. And I think with this particular group of lions, as it were, in spirit, there had been no cohesiveness. I think what's shocking and startling, maybe shocking and startling to those on the outside, and maybe a source of inspiration, bragging rights for those on the inside of the pride, is that it's a show of cohesiveness. Not just that it's something new and pleasant and refreshing to see black folks sticking together, as it were, but I think maybe on a deeper level, subconscious or even beyond, where we're just barely starting to remember, it's a refreshing and familiar norm, a return to the days of safety in numbers, of the enemy being on the outside and not within. What does it mean for you? I mean, give yourself some time and think about it and dig deep. And be selfish about it. I mean, the best thing for self in a community is to take care of the community. You know? It allows you to be selfish while looking out for your greater self. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be in a pride.